الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. Welcome to our show, The Voice of Islam, the dynamic and spiritually stimulating show about Islam. Brought to you by Muslims who believe in the Messiah, Mirza Ghulam Ahmed. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community has tens of millions of Muslims for peace in over 200 countries. Our motto is love for all, hatred for none. My name is Mariam, and I'm here with my co-host Arfa. Assalamu alaikum, Arfa.
Walaikum assalam.
I'm so excited to spend the next hour talking to you about real issues and Islam's perspective on them.
Yes, exactly. So for our listeners who want to learn more about Islam and its teachings through the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, you can go online to trueislam.com. That's trueislam.com. You can also check out our Facebook page, Voice of Islam Radio Show. And for those who would like to talk to someone directly and ask questions, call the number 1-866-Y-ISLAM. Again, that's 1-866-Y-ISLAM. And for any questions or comments, feel free to email us at voiceofislamradioshow@gmail.com. So now in today's show, we're actually having a special giveaway. So for the first 5 callers who call in, we'll be giving out a special prize. So get out your phones or write this down or pull over if you're driving. Give us a call right now to the KCAA listener line. It's 1-888-909-1050. Again, that number is going to be 1-888-909-1050. 1050. So call in right now and claim your prize.
Yes, please call in. So I wanted to just begin by introducing the Ahmadiyya Muslim community a little bit more, and I wanted to explain what we stand for. So since 1889, our community has condemned all terrorism and strives without violence to establish peace and educate the world about the true teachings of Islam. The information that we provide on this show will be actual teachings of Islam. Our sources will be quotes from our holy book, the Quran, which we believe is the word of God, words and incidents of the holy prophet of Islam, Muhammad, peace be upon him, and we will also use direct quotes from the founder of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, the promised Messiah, may peace be upon him, and his successors. And you'll hear us talking about them and referring to them as caliphs. So we'll be here with you for the next hour for real talk on Islam, and we felt that a really great topic to discuss, especially with Thanksgiving coming up, and we're all gearing up to that on Thursday. It's the power of gratitude.
Yeah, I love this topic. And I think it's a very important topic to bring up, especially during these times.
Yeah.
I know for a lot of people during COVID, times have been tough, and it can sometimes be hard to recognize the blessings we have when going through really anything that's difficult in our life.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's important to realize that everyone has their own struggles, whether it's family issues, relationships, work, financial problems, your health even, or really when it just feels like the world just keeps pushing you down.
Yeah.
And it's times like these that are the most crucial, and when Islam actually teaches us to count your blessings, and that these times do pass with patience. Verily, with every hardship comes ease, and that's in chapter 94, verse 5 in the Quran. So I hope our listeners stay tuned. We have a great show today with some exciting guests as well, and we hope this show leaves you feeling good and inspired, and hopefully gives you a more positive outlook on things.
Exactly. And we'll spend some of the show later on discussing gratitude from a religious and spiritual perspective. But we wanted to start by looking at the mental and physical effects that being grateful can have on us. How can it affect our outlook on life? Does gratitude have any effects on our brains and our body?
Yeah, those are really interesting questions. So according to a 2012 study published in a journal called Personality and Individual Differences, gratitude improves physical health. Grateful people experience fewer aches and pains, and they feel healthier than other people. Grateful people are also more likely to take care of their health. They exercise more often and are more likely to attend regular checkups, which is likely to contribute to longevity.
So basically, being positive and grateful can help you live longer. That's amazing. And there's so many other studies and research that shows how being grateful can lower levels of stress and depression. It can help you cope better with adversity. It helps with sleep and even relationships. And I think, Arfa, you'd mentioned earlier that you'd wanted to talk about how this can affect our personal happiness.
Yeah, so actually, I studied psychology in college and I work in mental health now. I remember having a whole class dedicated to happiness and satisfaction of life. And I just remember one lesson that always stuck with me was that gratitude was a huge contributor to attaining satisfaction in life.
Right. And actually, with you talking about that, there's something I was thinking about earlier, and I think it's linked to this. So I was thinking about how much of a role social media can have on our mental
Yes,
health.
definitely.
There are so many obvious benefits to social media. You know, we can reach each other faster, news reaches each other faster, we're connected more. But I have noticed that when we are scrolling through people's profiles, it can sometimes be really easy to look at these perfect pictures, sometimes they're filtered, and suddenly feel like there's something missing or lacking in your life.
Yeah, exactly. I know what you mean. And even if you're not even thinking about that, it does happen subconsciously.
Yeah.
You don't even realize it's happening until you suddenly feel unfulfilled. And this can lead to a habit of becoming ungrateful for all the blessings that you do have in your life. There's so many little things that we don't recognize. And this is why mental health experts recommend to take some time off from social media.
I have to admit, like even personally, I take regular breaks from my social media accounts, and it really helps me keep things in perspective.
Definitely.
So, Arfa, seeing as you've studied this topic, have you read about any tips or habits that maybe our listeners could try and kind of adopt in their daily lives to help have a more positive mind frame?
Yeah, definitely. So this is just one tip, but I would definitely recommend, our listeners to, look up online, look up different ways on what you feel like would be good for you. But there was a study that I was reading about where I found that journaling for 5 minutes a day or just listing 10 things about what we're grateful for can enhance our long-term happiness by over 10%.
Wow.
Yeah, so it turns out that noticing what we already have can make us feel more positive about our lives. And it makes sense that those who pay attention to what's good in their life instead of what's bad are more likely to feel positively about their life.
And it sounds so simple, it's almost obvious, but it's something that everyone actually has to make a conscious effort to do. It doesn't always come naturally. And I mean, isn't that our ultimate goal, to find peace in our lives?
Yeah, exactly. All right. So next up, we have our first guest for the day. But before we speak with her, I do want to remind our listeners to email us at voiceofislamradioshow@gmail.com for any questions or comments you might have about what we've already discussed or what we can discuss in our future shows. You can also ask questions directly by calling the number 1-866-YISLAM. And if you haven't already called us for a special giveaway, we'll make an exception, but don't forget to call the number 1-888-909-1050. Again, the number is 1-888-909-1050 and claim that special prize.
Yes. So I'd like to go and introduce our first guest now, Dr. Shahnaz, who will be discussing with us the scientific benefits of gratitude. Dr. Shahnaz received her PhD degree from the Medical College of Virginia, Richmond, and her MBA in Business and Healthcare from the University of the Sciences in Philadelphia. Currently, she's a professor of pharmacology and toxicology at the University of the Sciences in Philadelphia, and her research is directed towards understanding the effects of stress on mental disorders. She is also a strong proponent of education as a means for empowering women and girls. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Shahnaz. Thank you so much for taking time out to be on our show.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam to both of you, and thank you so much for inviting me to talk on such an interesting topic.
Oh, you're welcome. We're so excited to have you here. So we'll just get straight into it. So from your point of view, the first question we wanted to ask was, what is gratitude?
Well, what is gratitude? Each of us, if you were asked this question, you'd have a slightly different take on it depending upon our personalities and our upbringing. But most of the time, people think of gratitude as a feeling or a state of mind. I personally think of it as a complex set of emotions because once you feel grateful, it compels us to want to do more for other people, to return the kindness. So I think gratitude, all in all, is a feel-good kind of an emotion that we should all try to practice or develop within ourselves.
Right. So what you're saying is it has like a domino effect on
Exactly,
other
that's what I was going to say.
other good things.
Yes.
Yeah, and I actually remember reading something about like patients who are depressed, they do tell them to try to help out others or try to do one act of kindness to, help your I've read that before too, and that makes sense. I like that.
So then our second question is, what are the key characteristics of grateful people?
Well, if you think of gratitude as a feel-good emotion, if you think of gratitude as a mechanism of appreciating and giving back, then one can think of it as, you can just then imagine that you must have in your experiences met many people that you say, they're so positive, they're so optimistic. And so these are some of the characteristics that the literature also says in positive psychology research that gratefulness is a way of, well-being. Like I was hearing you talk before about life satisfaction. And they say that people who are grateful, and psychologists have actually divided us into people who have grateful personalities and those that don't have a grateful
Oh,
personality.
really? I
So,
didn't know that.
yeah, so when you think about it, if you are a person with a grateful personality, you'll observe that they're very optimistic. For them, the cup is always half full, it's never
Yes.
half empty. They have a
Definitely.
positive attitude to life, but they don't take things for granted. They value the smallest things. They're observant and appreciative. They pay attention, who helped them, when did somebody help them. They're quick to acknowledge other people's contributions. They don't believe in taking all the accolades for themselves. They count their blessings, and they tend to have a humble posture. They tend to have patience because they know that life is not just made of bed of roses. There will be challenges, there will be hardships, but they endure it with remembering past blessings. So they tend to be hopeful, they tend to be patient, they tend to be compassionate, they tend to want to give back to society, whatever it may be, their time, their money, and they look to improve other people's lives because they are so blessed. And research that I read, positive psychology research, said that, which was interesting, that grateful people tend to be less materialistic.
Oh, yeah.
They are not into worldly things, and therefore they're also less envious and jealous of other people.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then another thing that I found very interesting was that because grateful people don't take things for granted, and their gratitude is manifested because they appreciate whatever they're grateful for, they take very good care of their mind and body.
Yeah.
So they tend to have better dietary habits. They won't smoke that much or abuse alcohol.
Wow.
They will exercise and so on and so forth. So I found that very interesting.
That's
And
true.
all these characteristics are things that we would find attractive in another person, right? So they kind of pull people towards them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
true. I like that because it's like if you're grateful for your body, you're going to do stuff to help your body or your mind, whatever needs to be done. That's a really great discussion. So, another question I wanted to ask: how is gratitude important for physical and mental health, and does it lead to inner peace and contentment?
Okay. So let's say now that you are trying to become healthy. The first thing you would do is, we watch what we eat, and then we
Yes.
say, I'm going to get into some rigorous exercise regimen. But exercise and diet are not the only ways in which we improve our physical and mental health. Cultivating a grateful mindset, or what they say, an attitude of gratitude, is actually one of the best ways to improve our physical and mental health.
Yeah.
And research has shown that, and this research is very new. It's not old. I would say it's 15 years old, this kind of research where they're actually looking at the physiological measures and the neurological measures of practicing gratitude.
That's really
And
interesting.
so, for example, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just making the point that I kind of understood how it had an effect on our mental health, but I didn't realize how much of an effect it had just physically in our bodies too.
But I like that Dr. Chanel said you have to have that mindset because, you can exercise for half an hour or however much
Correct.
you'd like. But if you don't have that actual mindset that I'm doing this for this reason, or if you're stressed out for a little thing and you go for a jog or something, that's not going to fix the problem.
Yeah.
It's not like an easy fix. You actually have to take the time to think about that. And I think like meditation too, that's why people meditate, to clear their mind, to think about, why am I doing this? What's the purpose of this?
Yeah.
So I think that leads to the next question. Does it lead to inner peace and contentment?
Yes, definitely it leads to inner peace and contentment because when you think about it, they say that it is not happy people who are grateful. It is said that grateful people are happy.
Oh, wow. I like that.
Yeah.
So just the way we think about it, how we relate gratitude with happiness. And, the research that has been done from University of California, Davis, from Dr. Emmons' lab, they say that when you are a grateful person, you cannot have resentment, jealousy reside in you. They can't be together.
Yes.
So right there and then, I'm showing you how you're going to feel happier, peaceful, and more content, right?
Yes, definitely.
The way I define it is, I think of peace as a state of calm. And I think of my brain. I think of if my brain is cluttered, like a messy room, and it's got all kinds of emotions and negative emotions, and I'm packed with tension and anxiety and fear, and I'm worried, I'm not going to be peaceful. But if I can declutter my brain, and I can instead constantly feel blessed and feel appreciative for what I have, I think that is a way in which I'm going to feel more peace, right? Because
Yes.
Contentment and gratitude, they go together.
That's great. That's
Yeah, and
good.
that
And that's
imagery
how
was really good.
I define inner peace, with contentment and with gratitude. Yeah.
Yeah, that imagery stuck in my head about the messy room because it really is like that's how your brain feels when you're not at
Yes.
peace and you're stressed out.
Yeah, that's true. All right. And the next question I'd like to ask, is there any scientific evidence that grateful people are more resilient to stress?
I think there is some literature, but it's not completely conclusive. They are making an effort to try to figure this out. One of the biggest things, what is resilience, for example? Resilience is to be tough or to be resistant to something.
Yeah.
So when we are grateful, what happens is our body turns on, instead of the sympathetic pathway being activated, our body becomes calmer and it begins to cause the parasympathetic pathway to be activated. As a result, you decrease the amount of sympathetic hormones like epinephrine or cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And so when you calm your body through gratitude and having positive thinking, you lower blood pressure, you decrease heart rate, and literature even says you can normalize blood glucose levels. But when I think of another thought was that resilience, physical resilience I'm talking about now, if you have too much cortisol in your body, it suppresses your immune system. It's an immunosuppressive agent.
Wow.
So if gratitude can turn down your stress response, it can lower your cortisol, then you're building your body's immune response.
Oh, that's amazing. It kind of reminds me of what I've heard. Again, I don't have the scientific evidence right now, but I know from friends who've had family members who have had cancer. I know a lot of the time the doctors do tell them that if they are more positive during the chemo actually can kind of work better on them. And it makes such a big difference how you are mentally approaching the treatment.
Yeah, and there's an old study, 2 old studies, where they looked at post-traumatic stress disorder, and they looked at Vietnam War veterans, and they found that those who expressed higher level of gratitude showed lesser symptoms of PTSD.
Oh, wow.
And also, after the 9/11 terrorist attack in 2001, many counselors and psychologists worked with these victims, and they found that those that practiced gratitude were able to cope with the terrorist attack.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's really amazing.
I know.
And I mean, for all of our listeners, Dr. Shahnaz, can you think of or can you help us with any ways that we could practice gratefulness in our daily lives?
Yeah, I think my shortest answer would be to acknowledge, to appreciate, and to say thank you. But really speaking, when you think about, today with the global pandemic, which we cannot avoid, we all are facing it. We are struggling with it, the loss of jobs, loss of family members. It is really very hard for us to say, what do I really have to be grateful for? So we really have to stop indulging in negative feelings and start thinking about how we can practice gratitude. And when we think about practicing gratitude, it does not mean that you minimize your hardships or you pretend that you don't have them. What it means really is that you take your resilience, you take all the good memories, you take all of those and you start thinking about all what you have and focus on the good and try to, help yourself cope or go over this hardship hump, as we may say. And what people have found is that there are a couple of different techniques that are used to practice gratefulness. I think one of them was mentioned by Arpa, the keeping a gratitude journal.
Journaling, yes, definitely.
Yes, and I've found I don't do it personally, but I know many people who do, and they have said it really, really helps them. When they write down their thoughts, and especially people who write it at nighttime, before they sleep, they say they sleep better. They are more relaxed at night.
That's good.
Well,
I need to
But
try to do that.
I wanted to say one more thing. Yeah, I just wanted to add one more thing that what the American Psychological Association has mentioned, that, as parents or as adults, if you teach your children early on to practice gratitude, they tend to be more optimistic and happier when they grow up. And I think that's what I would like to close with, is just share with you the 4 points of gratitude. Is there time for me to just share that?
Yes, definitely. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Okay.
I just wanted to actually just add on to that one point before you share that final thought, was when you were saying about children, it reminds me of when I have 4 young children, and when they were very young, I would go through periods when I was very stressed out all the time. And something that I did was my mom told me as well to do something to physically remind myself every day that how grateful I am for them. So I wasn't just always stressed about it. So I made them all draw a picture each and put their name underneath it and stuck it on the wall, so that every time I looked at it, it would just, even if I was annoyed at them for a minute, it would make me grateful. And I feel like that really helped me not just be stressed all the time, just to remind me, how much I love them. So this kind of reminding me of what you were saying about children. And then obviously, if the mother is stressed out, the children will be stressed out. So it's a bad domino effect in that sense.
Exactly. And I think I do that for work too. Like, not like I make my sister draw a picture or something, but like she'll like write a note to me or something, I'll kind of stick it up there, or a picture of like my parents or my family. If I'm at work, I'll put it on my desk just to kind of remind me that this is why I'm doing this and I'm grateful for this. And yeah. Okay. I'm sorry we cut you off.
Yeah, no, we
Dr.
wanted
Shahnaz.
to hear
Go
your
ahead.
final
Yes.
thoughts.
Yeah. Well, no problem. But I did want to share this because I feel not only children need to practice, but we adults, it's always good, it's a good reminder for all of us. So the APA, the American Psychological Association, says that there are 4 parts to gratitude, which are, one is notice, then you think, then you feel, and you do. So, for example, a notice means, let's say your child just got a gift, and you talk with your child, you pay attention to that gift, and you notice and talk to the child about how the person who gave the gift remembered that it is your favorite, you love to do puzzles, or this is your favorite color look, the outfit it's got the pink that you love, or, you like cars, or you like books. So you talk about and pay attention to that gift and talk about that person and relate it back to that person. Then the second way is to think, and you tell your child, why do you think you got this gift? Make them vocalize. Is it because of your birthday? Was it a special holiday? Did you get a wonderful report card? Or was it just that grandma just loves you? So make that child think and vocalize it. And then finally, then you ask your child, feel it. So you process the emotion in your brain and you say, how does this gift make you feel? Are you happy? Are you excited? Do you feel loved? So that child begins to then process this emotion. And finally, you ask your child, so what do you think we should do about it? Should we make a thank you card? Should we call up? Should we FaceTime? Should we give a hug? Whatever it is, and this is the way the child, and also I think we adults need to do this more
definitely.
often. Notice, think, feel, and then act upon it.
Yes.
And I think finally, we are very reticent to show our appreciation. We often are reluctant. And we take the people closest to us for granted. So I think we should be less shy and more open to just say thank you to people and then see how miraculous it is for both the person who got appreciated and the person who appreciated.
I'm so glad you shared that with us.
I
Me
really
and Arfa
like
both
that.
wrote that down.
We said notice, think, feel, act.
Yeah. No, we're so
Very
thank
nice
you so much for that final
You're
note. And everything that you shared with us today got me thinking so much about everything. So thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Definitely. Thank you so much for coming to the show.
Thank you.
We hope you'll
Thank you
come
for
again in the
letting me-
future.
Join. All right.
All right. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, so now that we've spoken about the practical side of gratefulness, let's talk about this topic on a slightly deeper level. So, how does gratitude affect us spiritually? Islam mentions the power of gratitude and reminds us of the reasons to be thankful for our lives and to be grateful to those around us. God says in the Holy Quran, in chapter 14, verse 8, "If you are grateful, I will surely bestow more favors on you." And in reference to this verse from the Quran, our Caliph, His Holiness Mirza Masroor Ahmed, stated that it is God's promise that gratefulness brings greater blessings. God is self-sufficient and does not need anyone's help. He does not need anyone's blessings and is not in need of man's gratefulness. He is the master of all wealth and all power. However, when God bestows his blessings on man, he sees whether man is grateful or not.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Mariam, that you brought up, that God doesn't need our help or he doesn't need our prayers. This is really just for our benefit. And it can be so easy for us to get complacent, pretty much, So when things are going well, that's when people start taking things for granted, or we might take these things for granted.
Exactly. And then it's a slippery slope because when a person becomes complacent, they take people for granted, they start complaining about things that normally aren't even real problems. And then the next step is that the person becomes really arrogant and starts to believe they're entitled to all the blessings in their life.
In Islam, we are taught that God loves humility and dislikes arrogance. And having gratitude can lead us to that humility and help us recognize that we shouldn't take things for granted, as you were saying before. So an incident that I'd like to mention about our Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, was that once the Prophet was seen performing his prayers so fervently that he was trembling all over and he was heard weeping again and again. There were times where his feet would even swell up during his worship because of standing for long periods of times. Now, when the Prophet, peace be upon him, finished his prayers, his wife Aisha said, "O Prophet of God, God has forgiven your past and future mistakes and sins. Then why do you pray with such passion and so fervently?" And to this he replied, "Should I not then be a grateful servant of God?"
So here, the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, was showing us his high level of humility. That even though he knew that God had given him such a high status and blessings, he felt the need to be actually even more grateful to God instead of feeling entitled to all the blessings. So in Islam, we are taught that one essential way of expressing our gratefulness to God is to serve his creation. This is something we discussed in our last show, and we'll probably discuss in many shows to come because it's an essential teaching of Islam. Our Caliph, His Holiness Mirza Masroor Ahmed, said, "It is only possible to form a close bond with God Almighty and to please him when we become those people who please and love his creation." There are many different ways to please and love his creation, but like so many things in Islam, it starts at home. Gratefulness to our families, especially our parents, and gratefulness to our neighbors.
Exactly. So let's start first with the gratefulness to our parents. Again, in Islam, when we Muslims are told that our first priority after worshiping God is serving our parents by showing love, affection, and kindness to our parents. And this is an act of gratefulness for the hardships they went through when raising us. In the Quran, chapter 31, verse 15, God says, "And we have enjoined on man concerning his parents. His mother bears him in weakness upon weakness, and his weaning takes 2 years. Give thanks to me and to thy parents. Unto me is the final return."
And another way we can be grateful is by being grateful to our neighbors and giving them their due rights, which is another way of being grateful for God's creation and serving them. We are taught that a neighbor is not just someone who lives nearby, but in fact, all the people that are within reach of a Muslim, they are counted as neighbors.
All right. And everyone, I'd like to just, give I think this comes back to the idea of gratitude
Yeah.
or community.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the idea of helping our neighbors is kind of what we talked about before, right? Helping out the community and creating peace, and love in the community.
All right. And, if we strive to treat each other with love and respect and show gratitude to each other, our society would be much more peaceful.
Yeah, and it reminds me of something called the Golden Rule, and it's found in most religions. So in the Holy Bible, in Luke 6:31, it says, "Do to others as you would have them do to you." And similarly, in the Holy Quran, in chapter 16, verse 91, it says, "Verily Allah enjoins justice and the doing of good to others and giving like kindred." And speaking of giving, Arfa, I think maybe you should just repeat the prize
Yes.
information again, because
That
we're
was
getting a
good.
lot of calls.
Yes, definitely. So we will be giving you a special giveaway. You can call the KZAA listener line. It's 1-888-909-1050. Again, claim that special prize. The number again is 1-888-909-1050. All right. So for our next guest for today, we have Dr. Kadus. She was born in England and is currently living in the U.S. She's also a physician like Dr. Shanaz, and she's also a mother of 2. Her passion is to reach out to other women in the community, and she has already dedicated so much of her time, and she does do a lot of community work. She currently is working on a national level to help spread the true teachings of Islam. Assalamu alaikum and peace be upon you, Dr. Kadus. Are you on there?
Salam.
Assalamu alaikum.
Greetings to all the listeners. Peace be upon you.
How are you?
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you for joining us. I know everyone's normally very busy on Saturday.
Yes.
It's the catch-up day of the week.
Yes,
Yes.
definitely. All right. So we also wanted to ask some similar questions, but your spiritual or religious perspective on them, if you can explain that to us. The first question we wanted to ask is, what is gratitude?
So there is no doubt that most religious teachings value the expression of gratitude. In Islam, gratitude is a highly esteemed virtue. So the more we are grateful, the more blessings God will bestow upon us. So in the Holy Quran, beautifully guides us on how to best conduct our lives in a manner which is most pleasing to God. And in relation to gratitude, God says in chapter 14, verse 8, "If you are grateful, I will surely bestow more favors upon you." So thanking God, our Creator, for even the smallest things throughout the day and every day is really the lifestyle of a good Muslim. And now the concept of gratitude in Islam, the best I can explain it, is primarily based on the teachings of the Holy Quran and the practice of our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him. The saying of the Holy Prophet is, "Whoever does not thank people has not thanked God." So being grateful and kind to God's creation is a very important part of every Muslim's life. Simply because only then can one truly supplicate the Creator and fulfill the essence of gratitude. So basically, gratitude in Islam, a simple way of looking at it is, it has like 3 levels. Firstly, feeling grateful in our heart as we reflect upon the innumerable favors of God. And the stronger our faith is, the more effortless this feeling becomes. Secondly, verbally expressing gratitude, to our fellow human beings, our parents, our siblings, friends and neighbors, is a beautiful way to ascertain that feeling of gratitude. And finally, engaging ourselves
Oh, sorry, Dr. Kudus.
righteousness,
Okay.
such
It's
as
getting cut off a
willingly
little.
helping and caring for those. Now, in the current COVID pandemic that we're actually facing today, I've been trying to encourage my older daughter, who's recently just started driving, and she loves driving, to offer to drop off groceries for the elderly members in our neighborhood.
Oh, sorry, Dr. Kudus. I think it's getting
so
a little
uplifting for her.
cut off. So you're saying your daughter, you encouraged her to drop off groceries?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So she loves to do that, and the gratification she gets from the elderly people in the neighborhood is such a wonderful and uplifting feeling
Oh,
for her.
yes, definitely.
And it just creates those bonds of community, strong bonds within the community, better understanding, and it's just such a wonderful way, for her to spend her time. And plus, she enjoys driving. She recently got her license. So still on the
Oh, that's
Yeah.
nice. All right, that's great. The next question I wanted to ask was what it kind of goes into the first question, but what are the key characteristics of grateful people?
Okay, so the striking characteristics, in my opinion, of grateful people are humility, compassion, and empathy.
Oh, yes.
So when true and simple humility is inculcated in our being, it enables us to feel and express gratefulness towards God, our Creator. Compassion, on the other hand, and empathy are virtues which are fundamental to the teachings of Islam. So spreading love through gestures of kindness and empathizing with others by means of understanding, sharing, and alleviating pain and suffering are all actions which are greatly rewarded by God.
Oh, yes, definitely. I
And
like
it goes
that.
back into what we were mentioning about the sense of community. As Muslims, we try really hard to help build a peaceful community. So just in these
Absolutely,
acts of
yeah.
gratefulness, we're just helping to kind of spread
Yeah,
that feeling.
having compassion for others, exactly.
Right.
Nice. So, I know, it gets hard. I was mentioning about COVID, and it's tough times right now. So, how can one remain positive and feel grateful in difficult times? I did mention a few things, but in your own words, what would you like to share?
So it is easy for all of us to be grateful when our life is running smoothly.
Yes,
Exactly
definitely.
how we perceive the concept of happiness to be, whether it is material gain, spiritual enlightenment, or some other way.
Yeah.
However, remaining positive and grateful for what we have and counting our blessings at times of calamities, such as the current global pandemic, is often harder, if not always. But during times of difficulty, people often get caught up in an emotional turmoil. They may detach themselves. They may feel afraid or angry. Some may blame others or succumb to doubt.
Yeah.
I will share a very profound and meaningful verse of the Holy Quran, which facilitated me to sail through a period of intense pressure. So I was studying for my medical board exams in London and was under a huge time constraint with an expansive volume of workload. There seemed like no end to the volume of work I had to complete. Then one morning, I read a verse of the Holy Quran, chapter 65, verse 8. It says, God burdens not any soul beyond its capacity. God will soon bring about ease after hardship. I immediately felt the pressure on my mind easing. I felt like a sudden uplifting of my soul as I put my trust in God and I focused on my work. And I was able to achieve my desired goal. I was actually able to achieve a lot more because every time I'm faced with a challenging situation, I recall that message of pristine purity and strength in this verse, and it gives me great courage.
Yeah, I really like that. That's actually one of my favorite verses too. I have that on my desk at work too. I have a lot of things on my desk, but I really like that verse because I think for me too, it reminds me that, you know, God knows how much you can handle and that he will take care of you through this and that he knows, you know, what you're going
Most
through. So
certainly, yeah.
exactly. So I love that quote because you do feel a sense of ease that, okay, you know, I'm going through this, but people always say, you know, just with patience, times will pass and, you know, just give it time, you know?
Yeah.
So I really like that. Thank you.
And so the next question that we wanted to ask you was, and this is a little bit of a tough one, so we're only giving you a little bit of time to answer like a huge question.
up.
So, what does Islam say about suffering and gratitude?
So, yes, this is a tough one because I could write a thesis on that.
I think they teach whole classes on this in college.
So, Islamic teachings related to suffering are actually very unique. The perception of what suffering is affects how a person reacts to the suffering. So, in Islam, suffering is not necessarily a punishment for sinful behavior. It can be a test of how a person withstands a period of difficulty and trials. So a person who strives to remain steadfast, exercises forbearance and submission to God, and is grateful under adversity, is truly righteous. Now, this isn't easy. This is something you build up and acquire as you go through the phases of life. And there are abundant blessings for trusting in God and remaining firm in our faith during the times of suffering. The essence of true gratitude in Islam is so perfectly explained by His Holiness, the spiritual head of our Ahmadiyya Muslim community, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad. May God be his helper. And I love the way he's described this, so I want to share it with you.
Yes.
His Holiness stated in a Friday sermon, "What is gratefulness of God's grace and its expression? Indeed, it is a perfect obedience. It is to practice what God enjoins and to avoid what He forbids. A true believer spends his or her life as a grateful human being in order to be a recipient of divine grace. For this, one has to remember God's favors with all of one's heart and mind throughout the course of one's day, and to continually remember Him, be always mindful of the blessings of God, and glorify His name." So I think this is so well put, and it
Definitely.
summarizes the best possible way to define gratitude.
It really does. It's given me so much to think about too. Just all the different pieces of advice that His Holiness gave us too, about constantly, being grateful every step of your day. And it's so important. And as I said before, it sounds so simple, but it isn't always simple. You have to kind of actively tell yourself to do it until it becomes a habit, second nature. So I'm so glad you shared that.
And I wanted to bring up something too, because it's true that when you are going through a really tough time, I think even in my life, when I think about it, I feel like those are the moments that you have the most transformation in your life. You think of things on another outlook, or you really go through these tests, and it really does test you. If life was just easy, I don't think we would really learn anything. It's when you go through these hard times where you realize, this is the person I'm becoming. This is what's making me stronger.
Yeah.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger,
Yeah.
as they say. So yeah, but I really like that quote. It's a very interesting topic. I think we'll maybe have that as one of our shows.
I think so. And we'll
I
call
really
you
like
back,
that. Definitely.
for more insight in that show. And so the next question that we have for you is, does gratitude lead to inner peace and contentment?
Yeah.
Again, there is a lot that can be said on this. Islamic teachings, when they're logically understood, are simply a way of life in which praising your Creator and being grateful to Him leads on to gratefulness to all human beings. So as you feel and express gratitude by counting what you already have, the desire to possess further material gains diminishes. It's like an inversely proportional relationship.
Right.
So a sense of inner peace and contentment develops. Similarly, when we're praising God through prayers and supplication, it gives us a fulfillment. It nourishes our soul, hence lowering our expectations of others, which leads to peace and contentment in our hearts. Also, Islamic teachings of expressing gratitude and its positive effects on our health have been supported by several scientific studies, some of which were mentioned earlier. So gratitude helps people feel more positive emotions, relish good experiences, and enjoy the best of health. Gratefulness, of course, leads to inner peace and contentment, which is the key to true happiness.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So I was wondering, actually, this kind of ties into our personal lives a little bit too, but do you think gratefulness can bring a positive change within our family, society, and workplace at large? And if you can think of any examples, that would be great too.
Certainly. Yes, certainly. I mean, Islam focuses great emphasis on family values. Expressing respect and gratitude to parents, as you mentioned earlier on, is a fundamental teachings of Islam. A mother's status particularly is highly esteemed in Islam. She has the responsibility of imparting, the good moral values to her children. Most children spend more time with their mother than they do with their father, in most cases. So sharing and caring for each other in the family setup and appreciating and thanking one another really helps to build compassion and stronger family bonds. Now, as children grow up, they convey the virtue of gratitude in their academic and workplaces. This will stimulate harmonious understanding and build good teamwork as they go on to, progress in their careers, their professional life. So once these values are established in an individual, it becomes habitual to thank and express gratitude, say to our neighbors, our friends in the community.
Yes.
And this act of naturally or habitually expressing gratitude is a very powerful way of promoting understanding and tolerance, which, as we all know, are the key ingredients of establishing a harmonious society. And it is so much needed at the current time.
You're completely right. And I really like the point you were making about, as a mother, how much of an effect and impact you can have on your children from a young age. I remember there was a study I was reading as I was reading up things when I was having my own children, that mothers that look stressed out and complain a lot in front of their children, the effect that they have on their children goes on way into their adulthood. They found that boys who saw a stressed out mother growing up either did not want to get married because they didn't want to put that stress on another woman, or they kind of, the other side was that they thought it was normal for women to be stressed out, so they didn't do much to help their partner in the home. And on the other side too, for girls, they didn't want to become mothers because they thought of it as a burden that they saw their mother carry. And that really had a profound effect on me, that you have to show gratitude and positivity to your children so they can see how much you're enjoying being their mother, so that they can kind of pull that forward into their lives. And it just really reminded me of what you were saying about how much of an effect it has on them as they're developing who they're going to be in the future.
That's
Because
good.
those values are imprinted, and then when you get used to practicing that gratification, the behavior of appreciation, you will carry it out into the community and then society at large.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also, Mariam, you were mentioning how, since Thanksgiving's coming up, why not sit around the table and kind of go around and discuss what you're grateful for with your family?
Yeah.
That's also a positive way to be grateful, just to see what's on everyone's mind too. But definitely, I think that's a good moment, or another example if anybody wants to do that. They probably already do. It's like a tradition that people do too. So
Yeah. I actually just thought of a quick question for you, Dr. Kadus, that, with the pandemic and families not being able to get together this Thanksgiving, could you maybe think of some way that families, either on Zoom or something, they can kind of express their gratitude and still have that feeling of Thanksgiving, during this time? Can you think of any things that we can do in a practical sense too, to convey that feeling?
To get together on Zoom, yes. I mean, they can share and count their blessings, days since the last time they were together. It may be a year ago or 6 months ago, and try and dwell on all the positive outcomes. Some families have related to me that we have actually bonded through the pandemic. They have had more time to have one-on-one conversations, be it on Zoom or be it, briefly in person. And they have, been able to create that family bond, the time aside, to see how we were doing and to reflect on the simple things in life, which sometimes get forgotten.
wow.
So I think there is a positive side. And in Islam, we have to try and focus on that and be grateful, as we know and we have that firm faith that the more we are grateful, the more we will be blessed. So it becomes a vicious, cycle of achievement and fulfillment.
Yeah.
No,
I
definitely.
would like to, So that's very important. But I would also like to conclude with a very beautiful verse from the Holy Quran. It is a prayer that I love because it reminds me to always be grateful. It's chapter 27, verse 20. My Lord, grant me the will and power to be grateful for thy favor, which thou hast bestowed upon me and upon my parents, and that I may do such good works as would please thee and admit me by thy mercy among thy righteous servants. So I'm truly grateful that we have the guidance from the Holy Quran, because at times like this, we need to cling on to any spiritual light that we can and see that as the guidance for us
Yeah.
through times of adversity, not only for ourselves, but to have that compassion and empathy that we can reach out to others in our communities and try and uplift them.
Yes, and thank you so much, Dr. Kadus, for coming to our show. You made some excellent points, and thank you again. It was very informative.
Yes, thank you so
Thank
much, and we look
you.
forward to having you back in the future.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, Mariam and Arfa. It was beautiful. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm truly grateful
Thank
to
you.
Peace be on you.
Thank you so much. So I think we'd like to end our show on one final beautiful thought from the Holy Quran, which is, surely in Allah's remembrance do the hearts find peace.
That's chapter 13, verse 29. And on that beautiful note, we want to thank you all for tuning in today, and we wish you a safe and happy Thanksgiving.
May peace be on you.
Thank you.